Hello again. We're about to work on a pre-tutorial for sidechain compression. Let's jump right into it. We don't need the controller rack today. We don't need a sample track today. Left click, remove this track. We are going to use this kicker. We're going to come over here to the left-hand side and we're going to select My Samples. Left click on it. We're going to click on Drums. We're going to come down to here. Everything's in alphabetical order, so we're going to come to Snare, double left click. We're going to take the snare over here to the kicker, and I apologize if that was too loud in your ears. We haven't muted these sounds yet. Now we also do not need this automation track, so we're going to left click and remove this track. Now we're going to be working with three basic tracks here. Triple oscillator, three basic instruments or samples: triple oscillator, the kicker, and the snare. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw this out to 4 bars or 4 measures. Okay. Come over to the right hand side over here and open this up. Bring this down a little bit, open it up a little bit more. Not too much here. Now, this right here we're looking at is actually we'll take this back up. This right here that we're looking at is a measure or a bar. You have 4 squares here, 4 squares here, 4 squares here, 4 squares here, 4 times 4 is 16. I'm going to open up this triple oscillator. You have 16 little squares in here, okay? And this is one measure. So what we're looking at right here is the equivalent of this. And we're going to take this out to 4 measures. We'll close this for now, and we'll close my samples for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 3 more measures to make it equal 4. So we'll come up to here to add steps and left click this 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Very good. Now we're going to open it up a little bit more. Come over to the right hand side, left click and drag. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a kick on every one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to come over here to the snare, and we're going to add a snare on every 3, okay? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. And we just created a little simple beat. And let's sample. Actually, before we even do that, let's go ahead and augment our instrument so it's not too hard on your ears. Triple oscillator is generally loud. Double left click on this little volume button, and then we're going to reassign this a value of 30. And click OK. Come to the kicker volume knob right here. Double left click, and we're going to assign this a value of 70. We'll click OK. And we'll come to our snare, and we'll assign this a value of, double click on the snare, assign this a value of 30. Snares tend to be very annoying, especially in post-production, like when you actually go to your DAW, Audacity, Ableton. Snares, hi-hats, cymbals, they're a pain in the ass. So take them down lower than you actually think you need to. And you'll see what I'm talking about later. We'll get into that later. Now we have 3 instruments: triple oscillator, we have the kicker, and we have our snare. So we're going to come to our FX mixer, and we're going to add 3 mixing channels. 1, 2, 3 with a left click on this plus icon here. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to open our triple oscillator, and we're going to assign this left click, hold, drag up to mixing channel number 1. Now we're going to come over here to the text, the font of FX number 1, mixing channel 1, left click twice, and we're going to rename this. And we're going to rename this Triple Oscillator 1, and I'm going to call it TO1. We're going to click OK. Next, we're going to close Triple Oscillator, open up the kicker. Left click one time. Over here, left click, drag up 1. To 2, my bad. Go over to channel 2, double left click, and let's rename it. And we're going to call it kicker. And we're going to click OK. Next, we're going to come to, let's close out of this, come to the snare, left click once, open up your Audiophile Processor, and bring this. We're going to align this. We're aligning this with FX channel number 3, which we've done with the previous 2. We're aligning it. We're assigning it to that channel. On this font over here at FX3, double left click, we open this up. We're going to change the name. We're going to change it to snare. And we're going to click OK. So everything's good right now. We have our triple oscillator, we have our volume on point, we have our kicker, we have our volume on point, we have our snare, we have our volume on point, and we also have them assigned. Triple oscillators on 1. Let's open that up. Kicker should be on 2. And your snare should be on 3. And these all look differently from each other. Don't worry about that, because essentially these bars right here are the bars that matter. What's up here is what matters. We'll learn how to mess around with these in tutorials that I'm not going to give you because I'm not proficient at that. But I'd like you to understand what's going on up here, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to know what's going on down here. There is one thing that I would like to tell you about your audiophile processor, which is in, let me close these other formats. In this particular format, your snare can also, I'd like you to look at this file right here, okay? Check out this file right here. Now down here, you're going to get a tutorial. Cubition does a really good tutorial on this. But on the far left-hand side, you can actually take your volume down and take your volume up, which is another volume control. So you can control your volume here. You can control your snare volume here. And then you can also control your snare value on this left-hand side here within this audiophile processor format. Just a little trick that you might want to know. Let's take this back to normal. We're going to right-click on this knob and reset to 100%. Now we're going to get right into sidechain compression. Now, first let's assign some notes to our triple oscillator. Double left click, and we're going to come up to this far left-hand corner here, and we're going to say keep this on top. Stay on top is what we'll say. Now remember, this is the A value. Anytime you open up a triple oscillator or any sample or any preset, it's going to be assigned to the A note. And the A note is this white key here on the piano. And this is A, this is B flat, this is B, and this is C. Okay? That's why it says C5 here. So let's backtrack. C, B, B flat, A. Okay, very good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come up to a scale. And we are going to choose, let's go to a melodic minor. And this does not matter. I just want to keep you guys fresh, you know what I'm saying? So that you don't forget the other stuff that you learned. We're going to come over here to the A, right click on the A, mark your current scale. You want to get this lit up, all right? And all the notes that you see, because these rows correspond to the actual notes on the piano, are going to be good notes within that specific scale. And you can write songs in many, many different scales, but for right now, let's flow with just one scale at a time. And we're going to keep this in melodic minor in A, is technically what's going on right here. So now I want to come over here to this little white tab, and I want to open this up, and I want to bring this out to 8/16 notes. Okay, so that's 8/116 notes, as we remember from our, actually I said quantification last time, but it's I think it's quantization is the actual term, quantization. Okay, so next we're going to come up just to the next lit area, light that up, and then we're going to come back to the original, assign a note, and then up, and then down. And we're going to do the same thing for 4 measures. Very good. So that's our melody, and our melody is ultra simple, nothing to it. Okay, so that's our melody. The point here is not to construct a hit song. The point here is to show you how side compression actually works. All right. Now the thing about side compression is I want to have in this particular project, when you have volumes that you layer upon each other, like so, we'll play this. If you decide not to go in and reassign these volumes right here, what LMMS is going to do is just going to layer decibels upon decibels upon decibels. And then when it comes to your master, it's going to hit this red area and it's just going to peak out. And when you go to edit it, what's going to happen is it's going to clip out because it's just too much for your speakers to handle. And you don't want that. So even if I left all these notes the same, it would still make the instruments sound better together. Because like I said, it's just going to layer it on. It's like going to some fast food restaurant and they just put cheese on top of bacon, on top of beef, on top of cheesecake. You know, it's not good. So what you need to do is have a certain amount of certain decibels at a certain time on a certain beat. All right. So what I want to do is I want this triple oscillator sound here I want the decibels to go lower every time this kicker hits and every time this snare hits and every time this kicker hits and every time this snare hits. Now let me open up this triple oscillator. And that was my mistake. Let's go over here to this aqua blue box here, double left click, and I want to show you. We're going to click over here, stay on top. And I'd like to show you this note right here is this note right here. This note right here is this note right here. This note right here is this note right here. This note right here is this note right here, and so forth and so on. I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have 1, 2, 3 right here. That's the 3, 4. Okay. And this did not stay on top because it's being a brat. So I'm going to click. I don't know why that did not stay on top. It's being a brat. Okay. So we can go ahead and close out of this. All right. So now we're on to sidechain compression. This is really about to happen right now. Okay. So what I want to do is I want this sound right here, this melody that we've created. Every time this kicker hits, I want that melody's decibels to go down. Every time this snare hits, I want this melody to go down. So first we're going to open up our kicker and we're going to go to the effects right here, effects. Open up the effects. We're going to add an effect. Come up to the top box here where you see the blinking cursor, and we're going to hit peak controller. And once you see what you're looking for come up, you can stop, left click on it, and click OK. Now we've just opened up our peak controller for the kicker and the kicker only. Be aware of this. All right. The only thing that we need to know about this particular control is to come over here, and this bass, you want to take your bass down to 0. All right. And that bass amount, because what will happen is if you keep your bass up all the way up here, the kicker has a resonance, like it's gonna hit and then it's gonna kind of fade out. And for the entire time that it fades out, it's gonna be controlling your triple oscillator. And I don't want that. I just wanted to control the triple oscillator for that moment when they both hit at the same time, so that I don't fuck with my master over here. I don't fuck with my master fader. I don't fuck with the noise too much, and I don't uh, clip out, essentially. So I'm going to take this bass down just to that one moment. Okay. Let's see. And that's all we need to do for that right now. Actually, that's not all we need to do. And this is actually a big deal. Okay, this peak controller here, I have not figured out a way to change this name, so I will never know which peak controller this is. If you're writing a song where you use several peak controllers, LMMS is going to assign the first peak controller you assign as number 1, the second to number 2, and the third to number 3. But if you have like 3, 4, or 5, unless you're some kind of autistic genius, you're not going to remember which peak controller is assigned to which effects chain. So there's a nice little feature. Come up here. You see where my cursor's dancing here? There's a little page with a pencil right here. Left click on it and open. Left click inside of here. Get rid of your put notes down here. And I'm going to put number 1. And this is my first project note. And I'm going to hit PC for peak controller. I'm going to hit PC1, not exclamation point. PC1 is the kicker. And that's all you need to know. So now I know exactly what, if I want to control any other instruments, I know that every time the kick hits that other instrument, I know which controller to assign it to. And we will see what that means shortly here in a minute. And go ahead and click out of this, close out of this. All right, and we can close out of this as well. Now let's open up the snare. We're going to go to our function. We're going to add an effect. We're going to type in peak controller. We're going to select peak controller with a left click and hit OK. And we're going to do the same thing that we've done. We're going to drop this bass amount all the way down to 0. And this is for a dramatic effect. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to remember every time you add a peak controller, and it's almost like the same thing that you do with your FX mixer. You want to know which, like if I didn't rename these, how am I going to remember which one's the triple oscillator, which one's a kick, which one's a snare? Especially if I have this many tracks and I never name them, I'm gonna be lost as fuck. You know, I don't want that shit. Okay, so anyway, and that's the reason why we're doing this right now. So you always want to add your name and you want to assign everything so that you're not lost. When you reopen the song, imagine coming back to a song later and you have 3 or 4 songs going. You don't want that. You want everything named perfectly. Okay, so we're going to come over to our P controller. We're going to come up to this little icon here. Okay, you see where my cursor is, and it says show hide project notes. Left click on it, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to throw our cursor in here, We're going to say 2. PC2 is the snare. And then we're going to go, and we can just close it out now. So we know PC2 is the snare. And shortly I will show you why that's necessary if I haven't already. Like, if you have multiple tracks, you're just going to get lost if you don't immediately assign or make some sort of a note as to what's going on. So this is a cool little tool up here. And it's also cool to remind yourself what key you're in and what scale you're using. Because sometimes I know that in older versions of LMMS, it wouldn't automatically light up and tell you what scale you're in. So you can always come here to your individual project note and it will remind you. So that's a really great feature. And just remember that it's there. Just remember that. It might take you a couple of last projects to remember that, but this is a great feature. Okay, so next what we want to do is we've talked about everything so far except for sidechain compression. And let's do that right now. We're going to go to our triple oscillator, and I want my triple oscillator to be the beta every time these notes hit. I want these to be the alpha notes every time these notes hit. I want these to be the predominant notes. Okay, so the kicker, we've assigned a volume. The snare, we've assigned a volume. And throughout the course of these particular 4 bars, I don't want their volume to change at all. But I do want the triple oscillator volume to change because I don't want it to clip out. I don't want it to max out. I want my speakers to be able to hear everything that I've hit. Okay, I want it to stay somewhere in the green down here and not in the red up here. All right. So we're going to come over to the function. We're going to add effect. And we're going to type in up here in the top box, sidechain compression. It's one word, sidechain. Type in sidechain, you're going to see this option here, left click on it. Click OK. All right, so now we have sidechain compression up, and we have our controls up. And this is for the triple oscillator. So first we're going to come over here and just essentially just kind of listen to what I'm saying and follow along. We're going to take our ratio all the way up. Okay, just keep that in mind. Our sidechain level is what we're going to be manipulating. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do, where are we right here, is going to right click on our SC level and we're going to connect to a controller. All right. Okay, this is ultra important. I need you to stop and listen to me right now. I'm not being over dramatic. This is very, very, very important. Once you open up your SC level, make sure you click this user controller on. In all the other tutorials that I've seen, the dudes just do it automatically and they don't tell you that it's very important, because it's not that they're bad teachers, it's that they're so used to it that they don't remember that they're dealing with beginners. So make sure this is lit up. Use a controller, light that up, light it up now. All right. So now we're going to come down to here to this arrow, controller 1. Now the reason why we made that note is because we have 2 controllers here. And I've been working on this song for so long, I don't remember which one was controller 1 and which one was controller 2. Like, was controller 2 the snare or the kicker? I don't remember. I mean, we're only dealing with 2, so I do remember that it's the kicker. But if you have like 3, 4, 5 controllers and you haven't made some kind of notation, left yourself some kind of a clue, like I said, if you're an autistic genius, go for it, do whatever. But like I said, this feature right here, you can always click on it and it's going to remind you which is which. So that's a really great feature. Okay, so we're going to click OK on controller 1. And we have now linked up our kicker to our triple oscillator. So every time this kicker sounds, the triple oscillator is going to lower itself in decibels automatically. And it makes for a really good effect but it also makes for easier mixing in a later process. Today's music, they don't mind clipping out, they don't mind being way too loud, but there's always going to be a revolution, you know? There's always going to be a revolution, and good music and clean music may come back around. So it's best to have good habits because you can always do the bad shit very easily, but you can't do the good shit very easily. So it's best to learn proper way first, and then you can break the rules afterwards. All right. So now we're in the triple oscillator, but we've only linked the kicker to the triple oscillator. Now, I could explain to you, but I'm not going to explain to you. Just do exactly what I say right now, and this is for the best if you're a complete beginner. We're going to add a new calf sidechain compressor. That's all we're going to do. Okay. So let's go ahead and add effect. Type in sidechain, one word. And we're going to add a new sidechain compressor. Okay. So now we have another one right here. So I'm going to open this one up, and you can click anywhere in this gray area. Oh, actually, just click on controls right here to the first one. And I'd like you to notice that this ratio right here is not the same ratio as right here, which means that the kicker and the snare have to be on two separate sidechain compressors, because if I change this, or if, I'll show you even further. I'm going to right click on this SE level. I'm going to go to controller, edit connection. I have no option to choose both. I have an option to choose one or the other. So controller 1 is kick, and controller 2 is the snare. So you have to open up two. You can't open up two with the same sidechain compressor. And that's why. So if you notice here, the ratio's up, and we're going to do the same thing. Left click, drag it up, take the ratio all the way up. We're going to come over here, right click. We're going to connect to a controller. Number one, what did we say? Number one, let me Miyagi you. I guess if you're a younger person, let me Han you. Click on that user controller first off. Okay, make sure that shit is lit up. Okay, number two, controller 1 has already been assigned to the kicker. Controller 2, we're going to use controller 2 because we're now working with the snare. We're connecting the triple oscillator to your snare beats. And we're going to click OK. So this has all been lined up. And then, like I said, if you get confused and forget, like, controller 1 was assigned to what? Controller 2, you come up to here, to this icon. Oh, PC is the kicker. So that's, what is it? P controller 1 is the kicker. P controller 2 is the snare. So you already know. So you're like, all right. So you're back in the game. You haven't forgotten all your shit, and you don't have to, you're not going to get confused and break your fucking computer, which you might want to do if you fucking love that song and you can't go back to it. Okay. Now we're going to listen. Oh, actually, I need to do one other thing. Open up our triple oscillator, left click. We're going to go to our function, open up our controls to the kick. This is the control number 1. This is our control, which is linked to P controller number 2. And I want you to take a look at these SC levels right here. I want you to take a look at these SC levels right here. Okay? And I'm guessing it's sidechain compressor levels. I don't know, but it would seem like the obvious guess to me. I hate to assume. So SC level over here and SC level over here. Whenever this kicker hits, you're going to see this jump. Whenever this snare hits, you're going to see this jump. And that means that this triple oscillator right here is going to respond by lowering its decibels. It's going to respond by lowering its decibels whenever these kick, which means that if they're in a shared space, of decibels, this is going to go down so that it's not going to go up, which is what LMMS is going to do. It's just going to compound that sound. All right, so let's take a listen. Okay, so I don't know if you noticed it. Take a listen again, but first, here's how we're going to take a listen. Go over to the triple oscillator, hit your control button, left click, and then drag it over to the next open uh, uh, measure or bar. Click and drag. Very simple. But with Beat and Baseline Editor, you don't have to do that. I'll remind you. You come over here, you can just drag it out anytime you want. Now, we're also going to. I'm going to keep refreshing your memory with shit you already know, but stuff that you're probably going to forget if you don't use it. Left click on this loop point feature, and then right click here at the end of what we want to listen to. And that's going to loop this. Otherwise, it's just going to keep playing into the darkness here. Okay, but what I specifically would like you to listen to is the triple oscillator. And the triple oscillator is going to mwah, 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 mwah. And you're going to hear that every time either the kicker or the snare plays. So that's sidechain compression. We've learned a lot today, and we've learned a lot about the knobs and how to assign effects channels. And, you know, the various, we haven't learned about ratio, but we've learned what the most important things are for this particular effect are. Okay. And that's what we've learned. And we've also learned that when you compound notes, you're going to max out in your decibels. So what you want to do is you want to have volume control to where you don't want to lose any notes when you're writing something, because ultimately you can clip out and you're going to lose some sounds if you go way too high or way too low. So if you go ahead and keep your volume at a decent level, you can always increase your volume later and not lose any of your original sound that you wanted. All right. I hope this has been helpful. I've got some links to sidechain compression tutorials in the comments below. Please give me any suggestions and please ask me some questions if you have if you have any questions specifically about how to move stuff or what's going on. Um, I have an idea. There's really quick before I leave. If you didn't know this already, there is an LMMS user's guide on the internet, and you can actually. I'm going to put my cursor way up here in the corner. You can actually play notes using your keyboard, and there's a diagram of that. And Cubician does this all the time, and it took me a while. Like I was wondering, how is his cursor staying in the same place? But he was playing notes. I didn't understand that. So if you go online, you can find a guide that tells you which keys correspond to which keys on the piano. That's just a little quick tidbit for all you beginners out there. So listen, I hope this makes your life a lot easier. And got some more tutorials coming up, and I'll see you next time.